Good. You're on mute. Your friend Steve is here, by the way. I don't know if you can see the audience. I'm sorry, you said what?
Tom's an instigator.
If we don't have a little humor on this committee, what are we gonna do?
We
right?
need something, don't we?
I'm gonna have to go see Tolmer again. I can't tell. Is it just about on 7 over there?
You're good.
Yep.
We're good?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, we're good. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Warsaw Board of Zoning Appeals, October 25. Approval of the August 23rd minutes. Rick?
Mr. President, I've read the minutes. If no one has any questions or comments, I've moved to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Dan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone dissenting? That carries. Unfinished business. Justin?
No unfinished business.
Thank you, sir. New business. 10-1-2021, 850 South Logan Street, variance from development standards. Justin?
Yeah, so the petitioner is seeking a variance from development standards to allow a portion of their driveway to be gravel. The city's municipal code does not currently allow gravel to be used as a travel service or a parking service without approval from this board. The petitioner is in the process of constructing a new residence at 1850 Logan Street. The petitioner has proposed paving the first 60 feet of their driveway from Logan Street in order to mitigate the spread of gravel onto the right-of-way. Due to the excessive length of the driveway and the proposal to pave the most visible section of the driveway to prevent gravel from spreading, it is the opinion of the planning department that this request could be viewed favorably.
Thank you, sir. Any questions before we open it to the public? Is there anyone who'd like to speak on behalf of this petition? Anyone against? Closed to the public. It's back to us. What is it, about 60 yards? How long is the driveway?
I think the petitioner might be able to tell, well, I don't know if they're here
I don't
tonight, but
think
I think it was
You are
around,
the petitioner. How long is the driveway?
In total, it's gonna be just about 200 feet.
And you're doing the first 60 of it, I think? And that's the most visible, is that correct?
Yeah.
Proposed
Okay.
bar surface.
Thank you, sir.
and the plan is attached to the packet, so you can kind of see that, what they're proposing to pave off of Logan.
Yeah.
And then what would be gravel after that.
Yeah.
No further questions?
Tom, did you get the letter from?
The one I saw in the packet said they were not opposed, right?
Right.
Okay.
correct, yeah.
Was there any other letters or any other comments from anyone?
No, there was just an email comment from Bruce Woodward,
Oh.
speaking in favor of it.
Okay. That was it. All right. With that,
I'll make a motion, we accept.
we make
proposal
approval of it.
1001, approval of 1001, 2021.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Dan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone dissenting? That passes unanimously. You're good to go. Thank you, sir. And it looks like, are you wearing a fireman's outfit?
Yeah, I'm gonna get back, but
Yeah. I smell smoke in my house. I want you on duty. Thank you, sir, for your service. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Item 2 on the agenda, 10-02-2021, County Road 200 North, variance of use. Justin.
Correct. So the petitioner has requested a use variance to allow a medical facility within an I-2 zoning district. The proposed facility will be an optometry practice with approximately 100 employees. The hours of operation would be 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. The practice anticipates seeing around 200 patients per day. The surrounding context of the site includes a parcel owned by Parkview, so additional medical uses are likely in this area.
Thanks, Steve.
Although the comprehensive plan recommends light industrial uses for this area, this request should not interfere substantially with the intent of the plan. It is the opinion of the planning department that this request should be viewed favorably when measured by the criteria delineated within the findings of fact.
Thank you. That concludes your comments.
Yeah, and attached is a rough plan of, a rough site plan, but this is more just pertaining to the use variance itself.
Okay. Any questions before we open it up? All right, very good. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in favor?
Yes,
And you are, sir.
Steve Snyder on behalf of the petitioner.
Thank you, sir.
As Justin indicated, the request is a use variance on this particular property. I've provided you with an aerial view of essentially the entire area surrounding the property, fronting on County Road 200 North. The parcel is limited to a certain extent because of wetlands, because of woods, but the usable portion of the property, roughly 5 acres, is very usable. And just as a little background, there's no hurry for Gross Nickel Eye Center to build a building and relocate. They're looking down the road at the future, and this site was available, and they looked at it favorably and said, now is probably the time to move, even though it could be years before we need a new facility. Of course, as with any wise purchase agreement conclusion and the closing is subject to the appropriate zoning, so it could be used as intended. Currently, 11.61 acres. The area is zoned I-2. The third map that I handed you shows the area in purple that is zoned I-2. As Justin indicated, the parcel immediately adjacent to the east is owned by Parkview Hospital. Likely they're looking at some kind of a use in a medical, because that's pretty much all they do. The second aerial map I gave you showed where their parcel is adjacent to the east, and also shows you where the hospital is. One of the things that I think is important to note, Mariner Drive, when the Y and Parkview put all that together, was dedicated right up to the edge of Deeds Creek. Now, obviously, it's not to put a boat in Deeds Creek. There is the plan at some point, or there at least was the thought, that there would be a bridge over Deeds Creek, and that road could be extended further northward all the way up to 200 North. That's significant for the development of this area, obviously, and it's probably even more significant for uses aligned with the medical industry. As I indicated, the parcel has some issues with floodplains, wetlands, and floodways. The fourth aerial I gave you shows Deeds Creek floodway in red, floodplain in yellow, and then the blue weeds that are shown on there are the defined wetlands under the wetlands inventory map. That pretty much limits the use of the south half of the property, but again, the north half, roughly, is very usable. Finally, although it's not required for tonight's hearing, we gave you a copy of a plan of what the intended development would look like from the standpoint of the area of the building and access onto 200 North. The access onto 200 was moved as far to the east as possible in anticipation that if the property to the east developed for a use that was compatible, there might be some need for a shared drive, again, years down the road. But right now, we're simply looking at obtaining your approval. One of the things that I'm going to ask you to do, in addition to approving the use variance for a medical facility, is to, under section 6.7.5 of your ordinance, extend the operating period of this use variance beyond the typical 6 months. Your ordinance says if you get a variance and you don't start something within 6 months, it's going to expire. Obviously, we don't have any plans to move forward in 6 months, and it could be considerably longer than that. So I'm requesting that if you approve this use variance, you also approve it without an expiration date, so that we're not bothering you to come back in every year or 2 years to renew it, and it simply continues. Use variances are very limited to the use that was described in the application. So we know that if the use is approved, the purchase of the property will probably go through, and then you know who the owner is, and that gives you a pretty good idea what the use is going to be.
What was that ordinance number that you'd like us to extend?
The section number,
Yes, sir.
6.7.5.
6.7.5.
With the asterisks by it.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that as well?
Yeah, and I believe the state has a larger window, we'll have to look at that. They can make that caveat. We have no problem with that as far as the planning office doesn't, but I believe this is something that needs to be updated on our end because the state's window is like, I
What
think,
about
7
Scott?
years.
Scott, any thoughts, anything on that?
I know current work says the 6 months is what it is. So certainly I think what Ms. Snyder's requesting is reasonable.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I don't think to leave it completely open-ended. I think you should give some end date for it to be started probably, but 6 months is what our current ordinance says.
Okay. It looks like this whole section of land, to me at least, may need to be reviewed for its use. That's my opinion. So giving them several years, I think, would be fine at this point.
I think if you look at the elements you normally consider for these situations, what is the effect on the adjacent properties? Dan's here, and I'm sure he's going to have something to say about the effect on Robinson Construction property. Parkview's not here, but they would anticipate a medical facility would be in their best interest adjacent to it. The size and topography has its limitations. Road access is always a key, and 200 North is a key place to have access. It's a main artery with pretty close access to US 30 and a stoplight. I already talked about the platted roadway for Mariner Drive, which could someday, with a little bridge, add much to it. And I think we have to look at the benefit to the community of the applicant. Gross Nichols Eye Center's been here a long time. I was thinking as I was getting ready for tonight's hearing, my first pair of glasses came from Paul in 1958. Now that tells you how long Gross Nichols has been around, but it's also an indication of my age.
Just
But-
an indication.
Steve, is there a duration that they were looking for the variance window? Are they asking for 2 years, or did they?
I think if we could go a little longer than that, maybe as much as 4 years, then they would know what's happening by then. And if they don't, they can always come back and ask for additional extension of that time.
Yeah, and the planning department would support that duration if it was part of the request.
All right, very good. Any other comments, sir?
Nothing else?
All right, very good. Anyone else would like to speak in favor? I think he almost did it for you, but come on up, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Dan Robinson, Robinson Construction. We're immediately adjacent on the west of the subject property. We don't object to this. I know we're zoned I-2 also. I don't know. Jeremy's indicated to me in the past that he now wishes we weren't there. But anyway, we don't object.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Dan,
Actually, you've got some interesting neighbors all the way around. I think that's,
Dan,
how do you feel about the extension of how long they have before they start something? Are you okay with that part of it also?
Yeah, actually, I'm surprised Steve didn't ask for 5 years.
Okay,
Time goes by so quickly, and it takes so long to plan anything.
Yeah. okay,
It just,
yeah.
so.
all right. Thank you, Dan. Anyone in opposition? Closed to the public. All right. We know what we're dealing with. Any questions or further comments on this?
How many years do you want on there?
The councilman or counselor suggested 4.
What do you
Four-year extension. I thought 5 was reasonable too, so, and there was no objection from planning.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion, we approve this with 5 years.
So a motion.
Second.
Seconded, Jeff, thank you. All those in favor of allowing the 6.7.5 extension for 5 years on the approval of the usage, say aye.
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 Anyone in dissent? That carries again unanimously. We're set to go. Thank you, sir. And thanks for coming, Dan, I appreciate that. All right, last one of the evening is 10/03, 2021, 521 Anchorage Road, variance of use.
Yes, so the petitioner has requested a use variance to allow a church within an I-2 zoning district. The proposed site is located at 521 Anchorage Road and is flanked by R1 zoning to the south, C3 zoning district to the east, and a continuation of I-2 zoning to the north and west. The petitioner wishes to use the existing building to facilitate various meetings and events related to their church. The exact dates and times are not currently known. If approved, the petitioner would be required to get all applicable permits through the city and state regarding the change of use to ensure compliance with safety regulations. The context of this site appears to be conducive to the petitioner's request. A church would create a more desirable buffer for the R1 zoning district to the south than other industrial uses. It is the opinion of the planning department that this request could be viewed favorably. I would just ask that we take a look and see if the petitioner could shed any more light on the dates and times that they might be using the facility, just so we don't open a can of worms that would be detrimental to the residential use to the south.
We can ask the petitioner when we open it up. That sounds good. Any questions before we open it up?
What's the building right now?
What's that?
What's the building used for right now?
So currently, I believe it's vacant, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the business is vacant. There is a gym that's making use of the building. I believe it's 24-hour fitness. They're making use of the building to the north. This current smaller building to the south, I believe, is vacant. So.
That's correct.
And I think, hasn't this neighborhood had applications similar to this in the past? I thought I
This is
saw.
a workout
I
center.
don't think this exact site has been
Okay.
petitioned, no.
You know, it sounded, I don't know if Rick, you remember, it sounded like we've been down this road in that neighborhood before, but I might be wrong. All right, any other questions or comments? Let's open it to the public. Would you like to speak on behalf of this petition, sir?
Yes, sir.
And your name?
My name is Mark Transparenti. I'm the pastor of Calvary Chapel, Lake City.
Thank you, sir. What do you plan on doing?
Well, we've been approached by the business owner of the owner of the property, who has set forth favorable terms for us to utilize the space. And we are excited about the opportunity, what he's talking about as far as the investment into the property, fixing up this vacant warehouse essentially, and it's really not being utilized for anything currently. It's kind of a wreck. There's grass growing up through the gutters. It's an eyesore. So he's talking about basically doing a full rehab inside and outside, and then letting us utilize the space. And presently we're meeting at Lakeland Christian Academy, when they've been wonderful with us, and that's where we meet on Sunday mornings. It's a larger space. It's their cafetorium. I'm not sure that this space would accommodate us for a Sunday morning service. But we are thinking maybe a midweek, maybe like a Wednesday night at 7 p.m. service, maybe a men's breakfast on Saturday morning or something like that, or a women's ministry midweek. But not a ton of space, not constant in and out. So there, we're a little uncertain about exactly how to utilize the space, but it is something we're kind of slowly walking, making sure this is the next step. If this is approved, then there's other steps after this, and so.
Are you planning on making a purchase of this, or is this a lease, or is this a rental?
Not at this time, not a purchase.
And so again, we're talking about possibly Wednesday evening, Saturday morning, that would be about the limit, maybe one more day. There might be, how many cars are we looking at? 5, 6, 7, 10, 15, 20, what's your estimation?
Currently, on a Sunday morning, we're probably running about 60 to 70 people. That's
But
including
that's-
children.
But
And
that's not where you would go.
Correct, and I don't think so. And if we did, I would imagine we'd have to split that to 2 services. I think if we were, right now, I don't count cars so much, but I would imagine that we're probably at about 20 cars, maybe, something like that. And so I don't anticipate more.
Even if you added Sunday, you could probably do 2 services Sunday morning,
Correct.
and then that would be limited to about 25 or so cars, it would sound like, or less for that one, each service.
Unless the church grew, and then it. and
Well,
then-
that's your plan.
Yeah, hopefully,
Yeah.
And he does also want to pave the side, there's a grassy lot on the, I'm not sure, if that would be I think that's the west side of the building.
Yeah, I think it
And
would.
so, to allow for maybe an additional 40 cars. If you've been by the property, they did a really great job with the current parking lot, so it would be professionally done.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any additional comments? Yes, sir.
I'm not sure where I stand on this. I'm not exactly for, and I'm neutral at this point. I got the questions, the answers out of them.
Okay.
You asked is the purchasing. We own the adjacent property to the west again. Okay? And,
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you come on up? This is getting a little longer than that one thing.
Yeah.
So Dan Robinson is again,
Dan Robinson, representing the property to the west where Airworks is located. I don't object to the church per se, but I've got concerns, and my tenant has major concerns because the
Airworks
city.
does?
Well, not with the church. The city's intending to take part of our property away and our south parking there along the building.
Ooh.
And that is going to impact a limited site already. So I was going to suggest to the city that if they're going to take that away from us and impact that building, which we spent a lot of money to put back on the tax rolls and clean it up for the neighborhood, that maybe that they could acquire some of the property over there that this gentleman's talking about to swap out for what they're wanting to take away from us. So, like I said, I don't object to the church, but
Yeah, and I think that
the
would
city's
be,
plans are impacting us greatly, and I don't know how to address that.
yeah, I think that could be a separate conversation. That the NDOT project you're referring to is revamping Anchorage Road. In the next couple of years, they'll be looking to acquire right-of-way and compensate the businesses for the right-of-way that they purchase. That the building we're looking at for the church is this
that
one
building.
right here. If there was a discussion, that involved acquisition of other parcels to create a parking lot, because I don't think the city wouldn't be taking, and I haven't looked at the right-of-way documents, so you might have a little bit more
According to
information
the
than I
flags
do.
that have been set out there, we lose all of that parking on the south and not much access left to the UPS door.
that looks like that might take part of that building.
Would that take the building, Dan?
Well,
We'd have to look at it
the
because
city's intending to stop just short of it
Yeah.
and drop back.
Yeah, the extent of the project stops at the railroad track. So I can't imagine, we'll have to look at it. We can sit down with Jeremy and take a look at that. I don't know if this church would have any consequence to
That's a
that
separate
action.
plan.
Yeah,
Well,
that
I
would
guess
be,
what I'm saying is, I know the church doesn't affect us directly. That's why I don't object to the church itself. But just compensating for the property taken doesn't solve the business's problem of operating.
Right.
And the easiest thing to do is to swap some property rather than the money or something.
Yeah, no, and we can look at that. We'll sit down with Jeremy because that's his project, and we'll talk about that. It won't be solved in this meeting, just because there's a specific process that the city has to follow when we acquire property. It's based on the value assessment, and we can't go outside of that. If the neighbor doesn't want to sell the city property, we can't necessarily compel them to just because you lost some of your property. But we'll take a look at what we can do related to that project. But I think that would
realize you
be,
can't compel them to sell that
yeah,
for us, but I thought it was, something that might be consideration, because we bought and rehabbed that abandoned building before it was even in the city,
yeah.
and I did not know that that was going to be done. So we spent over $1.5 million fixing that place up.
Yep,
So-
I believe it.
And have you, I don't want to digress too far down this,
We're getting close.
have you received any of the right-of-way acquisition documents for
I
that?
have received a copy of the drawings Jeremy forwarded to me.
Okay.
And an appraiser has come out and looked at it. I have not heard any response from him yet.
Okay, well, let's set up a meeting outside of BZA, and we can sit down with Jeremy and discuss kind of what's going on with that parcel, because I haven't seen the exact drawings up against the building and what exactly is being taken or not. So
Okay.
it definitely should be talked about, but I don't want to muddy the waters with the use variance too much. But we do definitely want to make sure you guys are able to continue to operate and not have any hardship because of that.
As far as the church using that building, as opposed to owning it, I don't have an objection to that. So, okay, thank you.
All right, well, thanks.
Thank you, Dan. All right, thank you, Justin. I think there is no one else to speak in favor and no one in the audience to speak in opposition. Close to the public. Use variance for a couple hours a week, I'm not sure we need to do too much more on that.
I think as long as they're not going to start a church there.
Yeah,
I
they're
think
not-
that usage is probably perfect for the building. But
Yeah.
as far as saying,
Fixing it
okay, we've decided to move our church to this facility, not so much. And that would kind of concern me with the wording. It says to allow a church within a zoning into that. And that's really not what we're,
We're not
That
being
is
asked
the
to do-
request. I mean, that's
Right.
what's been requested.
But because they're leasing it, it's really kind of just a usage of a church.
Correct. For it to be purchased, I mean, unless they purchase the entire property, they would have to subdivide the parcel and.
Right.
But if they were acquiring that one building, but, yeah.
Scott, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, sir, the question is, we're approving it to be a church, which in a light industrial, we're not necessarily in favor of, we've never have been, but we've done things similar to that. What's your thought on it? Is that an issue that we need to debate a little bit, or?
I think if you approve it today to be a church, it can be a church. That it can use it as a church, because you've approved it to be used as a church.
So that, once that approval is made, if this church gets a real service going and then they move out and another church wants to come in, that's the church.
Correct.
Okay. And that's, Jeff, that's your concern.
yes. And it's mainly just the wording, I mean, of the request.
Yeah, well, the hard part is, I don't think you can word it too many other ways.
Right.
All right, that's fair enough. Dan,
Is this a little premature?
I don't know.
Or should we give them more time to dissolve some things before we make a vote? Is my question.
The petitioner can probably answer that. Are you planning on doing this in the next few months, sir, or is this a long-term, short-term? What's your plan?
So the owner of the property would like to start making some of the rehab projects. He would like to, he said by January, he'd like to have the project finished. And then that's what I know.
Thank you, sir. Rick, you haven't said much on this tonight. What is your thought?
I'm just kind of listening. I don't have a strong feeling. I generally don't have a problem with churches and light industrial because at least they're getting some use out of it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a building that needs some work, and this is a good way to get it done.
Tom, what I didn't hear, what was his answer about how soon they were going to use it?
Less than 2 months. I think you were talking about January starting off? About January, a couple of months.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, what he's got to do is, I think you've got to do a lot of work inside and out, if I picked that up correctly.
That's correct. I mean, it's basically all new electrical, all new plumbing, new HVAC, floor ceilings, walls.
Sounds like a
outside,
complete
siding.
renovation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a complete nut job.
Okay, that's a complete renovation of the property inside and out, Rick, of the building, but they're not purchasing it.
Okay, so they're going to what, lease it?
Is it a lease or a month-to-month?
It would be a lease. It would be probably something like a 2 to 5 year lease. We haven't come to terms exactly on that.
Well, I think if you're doing a complete refurb, you'd have to have at least that. All right, Scott, any further thoughts?
No, my thought, like I said before, kind of in response to Jeff's answer or question, and if you approve it for that use, it's approved for that use regardless of who the one particular that might be using it at that time.
And in this particular area, I don't think the neighbors are gonna be terribly upset about it. What are their what's your objection, just out of curiosity? I mean, it's a light industrial.
Right. I guess my objection is that if it was a building sitting there and they said that we're going to purchase this building and we're going to renovate it and make it a church, and if we decide that we don't want it and it's still a church, that's what it is. We have industrial on Mr. Robinson's side of the street. This other building that's right there is also being used in another way. Like I said, I think it's a great idea for a church to, if they're going to lease it and they're going to use it for church functions, that's great. But to actually say that we're going to approve it to be a church in that particular area, I just don't know that that's such a good idea.
And this approval doesn't limit the ability for it to be used in an industrial way either, so just so that's clear. They could lease it for a number of years and then the underlying zoning still is there, so it won't stop an industry from moving in there, light industry from being in there,
So go from a church back to something else.
Yeah, that zoning isn't taken away. This is just, it's I-2, it has all those uses by right, and then a church use would be layered on top of that, if approved.
All right. All right, with that, are we going to make a motion for or against, or where are we with this, Colin? Rick?
I would make a motion to approve.
Okay. So moved, seconded? I'll second it. All those in favor, aye? There's two of us. Did you say yes, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, Dan? Jack, you haven't said anything. You get to vote on this, I think.
No, he doesn't.
No, I don't get a vote.
Oh, yeah, that's right, you don't
I
get to vote.
don't get a vote.
I forgot about that. Anyone in dissent? I don't think so. I did a roll call vote, so that's approved. Thank you all. Richard, appreciate that for the motion. Any
Okay.
other matters
I'll
that,
sign out.
sir?
I'll sign off.
Okay, I think well, no, you've got one more thing to do.
Okay.
Any other matters come before the board?
No.
No. You need to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I move to adjourn.
Second.
We had 3 seconds on that, so it's, that carries, that there was no one else to dissent. We stand in adjournment, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, Rick, sign off.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, bye-bye, Tom.
Bye.
I put Jeff as the second.